is Dan Seifert with MobileBurn.com, and in front of me here is the Pantech Pocket for AT&T. The Pocket is a unique smartphone. It's got an interesting screen ratio, as you can see there from the size of it, and it's got kind of a unique form factor that we haven't seen on other smartphones to date. For starters, what you can see here is it's got a 4:3 ratio display. Now, the 4:3 ratio display is very similar to what you might find on an iPad or other similar tablet like the touchpad. And it's not usually seen on smartphones. Usually you have a wider display that has a more taller vertical height as opposed to its horizontal width. This particular screen is pretty pixel dense. It's got 600 pixels across and 800 pixels down, so it's kind of a unique resolution as well. Looking at it up close though, you really can't see the pixels too well, and it does a very good job of hiding the pixels and looking very crisp in your hands. The screen does measure 4 inches as well. On the front of the phone itself, below it are these 4 hard buttons for menu, home, back, and search, as we typically expect from an Android handset. Up top is a light sensor and an earpiece. There's no front-facing camera on this model, as Pantech is targeting towards a more entry-level demographic than other smartphones. Now, as you can see here, it's got this kind of unique ridge along the front of the phone itself. And that does a twofold purpose. It provides a little grip, but also if you put the phone face down on a flat surface, it keeps the screen off of the surface itself, kind of suspends it in the air there. If we look at the side of the phone, we can see the thickness of it. It's not the thinnest phone on the market. It's about 11.2 millimeters thick, so it's a little bit thicker than your average smartphone these days, believe it or not. It's got a chrome strip surrounding the frame of the phone itself. This particular side, the left-hand side, is a volume up and down rocker, but not too much else. Down at the bottom, there really isn't anything of note. And then on the right-hand side, right smack dab in the middle of it, is a micro USB charging and syncing port. Up top, we've got a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack and a small power sleep unlock key. And that's about it for the top there. Now, if we look at the back of the Pantech Pocket, you can see we've got this textured rear cover here that gives us quite a bit of grip when we're holding the phone. As you can see in my hand here, the phone is extremely wide, and I'll compare it to a couple other phones in a moment to show you how exactly wide it is with reference to other phones. But while we're here in the back, we'll take a look here. This is the 5 megapixel autofocus camera. As you can see, there's no LED flash, but it does record 720p video, and then we've got a loudspeaker next to that. Prying off this back cover here, let's see if I can do this smoothly. There we go. We've got a 1500 milliamp hour battery. 2 gigabyte micro SD card is pre-installed, does support up to 32 gigabyte cards, and then it's got a micro SIM slot, which is a little bit different than what we usually see. You don't see too many micro SIM cards, except for mostly Apple products have those nowadays. Now, the Pantech Pocket is not the heaviest phone. It's about 125 grams, but it is put together well. There's no real creaks or seams. There's no moving parts that really have to worry about falling off either. It's a pretty solid put together phone. Now, just to give you a better idea of kind of the unique size and shape of the Pantech Pocket, I've got a couple other phones here that I'm going to compare it to side by side. This is an iPhone 4S, and as you can see, the Pocket is considerably wider. The iPhone 4S has a 3.5-inch display. The Pocket has a 4-inch display, and Pantech says that 4-inch display offers about 20% more viewable area than your typical 4-inch display. But you can see it's a considerably wider phone there. It's almost 25% wider than the iPhone 4 itself. Now, comparing it to another phone that's got an even larger display, this is the Samsung Galaxy S2 Skyrocket for AT&T. This particular model has a 4.5-inch screen, and it's almost as wide as the Pantech, but as you can see here, the Pantech is still even 10% wider or so, right about there. So it really is kind of a unique form factor in your hand. It almost feels like a mini tablet, and that's probably what Pantech is probably going for. Now, though the Pocket is targeted towards mainly an entry-level audience with that prefers a unique form factor, Pantech didn't really skimp on the internals on it. It's powered by a single-core 1 gigahertz processor. It's got about 512 megabytes of RAM. As we noted earlier, it does come with a 2 gigabyte micro SD card. Internal storage is roughly about 300 megabytes, so you are going to have to be moving some apps to the SD card if you do like to use a lot of apps. The interface is Pantech's unique custom interface on top of Android 2.3.4. We've seen this interface before a couple times. We saw it on the Pantech Breakout for Verizon, which was an LTE phone, and then another Pantech smartphone earlier in the year had it. It's pretty fast and responsive, as you can see. It's got about 7 home screens that you can page through. Pantech's preloaded a few widgets on them. You can pinch to zoom like with most custom interfaces. You can tap the dots to access various pages themselves directly. Pantech has added some nice touches to the particular user interface here. If you swipe down from the top, we've got some quick shortcuts to access Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, GPS, alarm, and sound settings. We've seen this on a couple other different manufacturer skins, but it's always nice to see it appear there. The home screen's preloaded with a couple of useful widgets. You've got a recent calls and messages widget there that gives you quick access to your call log, your message inbox, and your email inbox. Unfortunately, it doesn't go to your Gmail box. It only goes to the built-in email client here. And then you've got some AT&T widgets and stuff, nothing really too exciting there. If we take a look at the app tray itself, we've got a side-scrolling app tray, much like we see on Samsung's TouchWiz interface. Pretty fast and responsive, as you can see. I'm swiping through the screens without any issues. Samsung and AT&T have preloaded a few applications on here, but as is the case with most recent AT&T phones, you can remove most of them if you don't prefer to have them on the phone itself, or if you're not going to use them and you want to recover some of that internal storage space. The one really cool part of Pantech's interface is its lock screen. So if we shut the phone off and turn it back on, you can see you've got a lock screen, and on the Pocket, it's got 6 different shortcuts. Let's get it waking back up there. You can unlock it by dragging the far most right one into the center circle, or you can jump to your email, your music player, your messaging app, web browser, or the phone app directly from the lock screen. Pretty nice shortcuts. Unfortunately, you can't customize these, so they are as they are out of the box, as what Pantech determined. So you don't have too much control over them, but most of the things that you would want to access are automatically there by default. Now, if we jump into Pantech's email application, see, we've got a pretty typical Android email app here. Pantech has customized it a little bit with some various skins. It does support formatted text, as we can see here. We've got color and highlighted text. Features pinch to zoom as well. It's not entirely the smoothest pinch to zoom we've ever seen, but with the Pocket's 1 GHz processor, it's not too bad at all. You can rotate it horizontally, and you've got a horizontal view. It would have been nice if Pantech had created maybe a split screen email client for the Pocket, because it's got this kind of unique interface and or unique screen size. I think that would have taken a better advantage of the screen size itself. You can have multiple accounts here. You can also manage multiple messages at once, quickly delete or move them around if you like. Pretty standard affair for most email applications. The same can also be said for Pantech's messaging application. It's a pretty standard Android-specific messaging application. Pantech has adjusted some things, or added some things, I should say. You can filter by date or by contact name, or sort by date or contact name. You got a standard conversation view messages with bubble message boxes there. Pretty typical of what we've seen before. If we open up the keyboard, you can see how wide the keyboard is displayed on the Pocket because of its unique screen size. This is the standard Android keyboard. Also included is the swipe keyboard. It's an older version of the swipe keyboard. It's not the latest version, so you don't have the suggestions come up across as a row, but you get them as a box above that pops up on the screen. There we go. If we take a quick peek at the browser, Pantech has modified the standard Android browser a little bit here. We've got a slightly different interface for accessing open windows or multiple tabs. You can access them from this interface, and you can add a new one right there. Load up our mobile burn site. As you can see, it loads our mobile site pretty quickly. And if we jump open to the full site here, you can see kind of how wide of a view you get with the wider 4:3 aspect ratio. Loads up the full page pretty quickly. Also scrolls, of course. Scrolling's not as smooth as you're going to find on a, say, a Samsung Galaxy S2 or other high-end phone, because this does only have a single core processor, but it still is pretty responsive once the page is fully loaded. Of course, you do have pinch to zoom, which again isn't entirely the smoothest, but it does work. And then you can double tap to zoom to reformat your text. You can rotate the phone and use the browser in landscape orientation. And the browser does support Flash, so you can play embedded videos.
Hi, this is Michael Worrell from MobileBurn.com, and I have with me the Samsung Galaxy Tab 7.0. Galaxy Tab 7.0 Plus. It's a dual-core 1.2 GHz processor in there, and it comes in 2 different storage capacities.
Loudspeaker gets pretty loud as well. Now, if we wanted to open up another tab, we could just go to Windows and open up another one. And we can switch back between the ones that we have open. Go back to the one that we were looking at earlier. Open up another story here. Now the one thing that I wish you could open from the actual lock screen would be the camera. I think that would be a useful shortcut to have there on the lock screen itself, but it's not there. So you can open the camera from the shortcut that's pre-installed on the home screen. The Pocket does not have a shortcut key to launch the camera or to take a picture, so you do have to use the on-screen controls to do that. Now it's got a 5 megapixel camera. It does have autofocus. Let's get our little Android guy in frame here. You can try and tap the screen to autofocus, but it won't really work. You have to hold the shutter key down in order to achieve focus lock. If you do tap the screen, you can get access to various controls. You got a function control. You can adjust a white balance, some filters, and a timer, shooting modes, brightness, and then you can adjust your zoom levels as well. Over here you got some settings mode for resolution and shutter sounds, pretty basic settings. And then here you can access your gallery. Let's see how fast this guy will take a photo. Kind of a unique shutter sound there, so you get a preview of their picture afterwards. You can pinch to zoom on it, or you can use the lever. So the camera's not exactly the fastest. It's not entirely a surprise given the Pocket's budget roots. Now if we flip over to the video camera, so you can record 720p video, kind of shows one of the weaknesses of having such a wide or a 4:3 aspect ratio display is when you're recording widescreen or watching widescreen video, as it would be with 720p video, you got these black bars top and bottom on the screen itself. You don't really see that too often on any other smartphones because they do have the wider format screen. Now as far as the video goes, it's pretty basic video. You can't really tap to autofocus, it just kind of records. You can't zoom while you're recording either. You gotta be careful to keep your finger out of the way of the lens there. It does give you an instant preview of your clip that you just recorded.
Basic video, you can't really tap to autofocus.
And you can see it's kind of zoomed in. It's got this kind of unique.
Can't zoom while you're recording either.
See if we can get that to zoom out.
You gotta be careful to keep your finger.
Kind of smushes the ruins the aspect ratio when it fills the screen.
Basic video, you can't really tap to autofocus.
And there doesn't seem to be a way to turn that off, so that's kind of a weird thing
Can't
there.
zoom while you're recording either.
So there you have it. That's a quick look at the Pantech Pocket for AT&T. This is kind of a unique smartphone with a very unique form factor that gives it kind of an individual look amongst the sea of smartphones that are available today. As a quick recap, we've got a 4:3 ratio screen. It's a 4-inch display with 600 by 800 pixels tall. It's powered by a 1 GHz single-core processor. Got about 512 megabytes of RAM. Excuse me. It's about 11.2 millimeters thick, so it's not the thinnest phone on the market, but it is built pretty solid, and it's got this nice textured back cover. The rear camera is a 5 megapixel unit without a flash. It's autofocus and does record 720p video. It does not have a front-facing camera either, though. It runs Android 2.3.4 Gingerbread with Pantech's custom user interface, as you can see here. And it performs pretty admirably. It's pretty fast and responsive, a little bit better than what I was expecting when I took it out of the box. You'll be able to purchase this from AT&T on November 20th for about $49.99 with a new 2-year contract. So there you go, that's the Pantech Pocket. This is Dan Seifert from MobileBurn.com.